What is going on, everybody? James Hancock here. Just got out of seeing Scott Derrickson's new horror movie, The Black Phone, and I have no notes, no preparation, no outline. I'm just going to wing it because it's getting kind of late and I'm getting kind of tired, but I do want to offer a few favorable words about this flick because Scott Derrickson is definitely a very consistent, reliable horror director. And with this movie, in a lot of ways, it feels like he's kind of getting the band back together, at least in terms of some of his earlier successes, like a movie like Sinister, starring Ethan Hawke and co-written by C. Robert Cargill, or Cargill, I'm never quite sure how to pronounce it. At any rate, same writing team, same director, same star, but here we are 10 years later. And what's interesting is how Scott Derrickson was originally supposed to do Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and he had a parting of the ways, just remained as a producer on it. But that movie's still playing in the theater, so he's competing with a movie that he was originally supposed to direct, which is an unusual position for him to be in as a filmmaker. And I feel like in a lot of ways, The Black Phone, it feels like a reset, almost like I'm good at making these down and dirty horror movies. I just need to get a hit kind of out into the world, get back on firm footing, and I can move on with my life. And I'm looking here on IMDb, and he's already got a bunch of other films as a director announced, including some untitled Labyrinth project, another called When Gravity Falls, and another called Two Eyes Starring, or Two Eyes Staring. Yeah, Two Eyes Staring. So no matter what happens, at least Scott Derrickson has got a lot of work coming his way. But when it comes to The Black Phone, the most important question, obviously, with any horror movie is it scary? Does it deliver the thrills and excitement that one expects when you throw down your hard-earned money especially at a time where there's a lot of economic uncertainty, etc.? It's like, should you spend your money on this movie? And I would say if you like movies like The Exorcism of Emily Rose, an early Scott Derrickson film, if you like movies like Sinister, never saw Deliver Us from Evil, but if you like those movies, then 100%. Black Phone is very solid. There are times in the first third where I was like, oh, this is kind of slow. Like, it's kind of taking its time to get to the horror. But there are a few moments where I was just like, oh, and it really got to me. And it wasn't stupid, cheap effects of things jumping out at you. Usually it was just through very clever camera placement, and a character would move and the camera would follow, and suddenly you're like, oh my God, like there's a spooky supernatural creature right there and he doesn't even know it. So as far as the premise goes, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but this movie will be eerily familiar to anybody who was a kid in the late 70s and early 80s, when it feels like, maybe just because I was a kid, I was born in 76, but it feels like there were a lot more child abductions back in the day, or at least as a little kid growing up. Because remember, every milk carton on the planet had a missing kid picture, and it definitely got under your skins. And people are always constantly saying, like, don't get into any van with any strangers, don't accept any candy, etc. and so forth. I have no idea what kids are told these days, but The Black Phone definitely struck a chord with my memories from that period. But this movie takes place in 78 when I was 2, so it's not totally age appropriate, but it's based on a short story by Joe Hill, Stephen King's son. And I'm ashamed to admit, never read any stories by Joe Hill ever, while I've read dozens of novels and many short stories by his father, Stephen King. I've got a bunch of them on display right here, but I've read considerably more. I've been reading Stephen King stories since I read Misery in 5th grade a fucking 100 years ago, and I've been reading them ever since. So at some point I will need to read some Joe Hill, because obviously he's starting to rack up his own bibliography as a horror writer as well. But without giving anything away that you don't already see in the trailer, most of this movie comes from the point of view of a kid who's been abducted after several other kids have already been abducted. And I feel like this movie does a really good job of setting like the tone and the era. I believe it's Denver, 1978. And it just seems to be a world populated by a lot of danger for young kids. I mean, bullies getting in absolutely just ruthless fights with each other, which is par for the course for the Stephen King family. Whether you're talking about Christine or Stand By Me or whatever, their family, they love to populate their stories with like greasers and leather jacket wearing like toughs, people who walk around with switchblades and that sort of thing. I don't know why those guys have such a fascination with those kind of personas, but they're in this as well. But no matter how tough the kids are, they are vanishing left and right. Some of them are more innocent than others. And finally, the lead gets taken. And what makes this movie interesting is how there are a lot of supernatural ingredients in terms of people having premonitions of danger and dreams that come true, and there are ghosts and their spirits and that sort of thing. So it's not a down and dirty, grounded thriller. We're definitely in supernatural horror territory. And that was probably the most interesting side for me. Like Ethan Hawke, goddamn, I've been watching this dude in movies for decades, and I wouldn't say I'm like a colossal Ethan Hawke fan, but I do like Ethan Hawke quite a bit. And he gives the movie his all. I mean, he's a scary, intimidating dude, and he's totally invested. But the real excitement for me was seeing the interplay between the kids and the supernatural world and the way they try to, I guess, outmaneuver this child abductor and so on and so forth. But as is often the case, anytime you make a movie with children, not all of them are necessarily Laurence Olivier in terms of their acting ability. And sometimes they're given dialogue that sounds a little bit too precocious or just too adult, where it really strains your ability to kind of believe that the kids would be capable of that dialogue. Like there's a marvelous young actress named Madeline McGraw who plays the character Gwen, who's the younger sister of Finney, the main kidnapping victim in the movie. She's delightful. She's got loads of talent. I'm sure we'll see her in a million more shows and movies throughout the rest of her life. But sometimes the dialogue she's speaking, you're just like, I call bullshit. I don't care how clever you are, how talented you are, or how imbued you are with second sight or whatever the case might be. You're just not passing the smell test. And anyway, I think that's par for the course with pretty much any movie that's going to have a ton of child actors. But Mason Thames or Thames, I'm not quite sure how he pronounces his name. He's a pretty strong central character, and he basically has to carry the movie, because so much of the movie is just him sitting in this horrible room, crying and sobbing and just trying to figure out, is he going to be tortured to death? What's going to happen to him? Can he escape? What are his possible avenues to escape? And any actor of any age, that's a huge challenge to basically have to, if his performance had not have worked, the movie wouldn't work. And I would say the movie on the whole does work. Is it the most devastating horror movie I've ever seen? Not remotely. But was I interested, and did I find the ending to be very satisfying? Absolutely. I guess this is one of those just down and dirty horror movies that's not connected to some giant franchise like The Conjuring. It's just a standalone movie, and I think there is value in just good old-fashioned standalone horror movies where you're in, you're out, and the movie's nice and short. It's only an hour and 42 minutes. And that's also kind of a lost art from in a lot of ways. I can't stand movies that overstay their welcome. So I guess if I were to make a case for why people should spend money on this movie, it would be, say you're not remotely interested in going to see Elvis, which I reviewed on Tuesday, or say you're not remotely interested in seeing Top Gun Maverick for the fourth time, because I'm assuming at this point most movie fans have seen it once, if not twice, or perhaps even three times. And say you're not interested in going back and seeing Multiverse of Madness. I do like a nice, healthy, robust, movie-going marketplace where no matter what kind of genre you're into, whether it's fucking fart joke comedies or romantic comedies or gnarly little horror movies or superhero spectacles, whatever the case might be, every market should be targeted and satisfied if you want to have a robust film industry. And at times, our film industry seems to overindulge in basically kids, animation, and superheroes. And I'm getting pretty bored with both. But I'm about to contradict myself because I just posted a review earlier tonight of the latest episode of The Boys, which was outrageous. But that's a highly unusual show relative to typical superhero content. But horror fans, I guess horror is the one genre that never goes out of style, because in any given year, whether it's a good year or a bad year for movies, you always have a lot of horror movies. And if you're making a lot of horror movies, just by the law of large numbers, sooner or later, some of them are going to be good. And so I'd say that The Black Phone, is it the best movie of Scott Derrickson's career? I don't know. I haven't seen all of his movies. But it works. It's good. I'm not going to oversell it. I'm not going to tell you that you're going to shit your pants or anything like that. It's not going to, it's not going to, if you're an established horror junkie, it's not going to keep you up, freaked out at night. Little kids, though, I imagine they're going to have quite a different experience because they're going to be seeing it through the point of view and the eyes of the childlike characters. So they very well might shit their pants. Who knows? I guess that should be the goal of every horror movie. Also, just by strange coincidence, I'm looking on IMDb right now. Scott Derrickson is from Denver, and he was born in '66. He would have been 12 at the time that this story takes place. I wonder if he and his co-writer decided to imbue this movie with any, I guess, memories from their own lives, what it was like to be a kid in Denver at that time, because it's a pretty rough and tumble depiction of that world. So I probably should have looked that up before I started talking. But like I said, I started recording without doing any homework apart from seeing the movie. So who knows? Maybe this movie is much more personal than I'm giving it credit for. But also I should mention that Jeremy Davies is in this. He's good. I wouldn't say it's Jeremy Davies' greatest performance, but he serves his purpose. But long story short, if you and your friends are looking for some weird thrills this weekend and you're tired of musicals and Marvel and all the other stuff, give it a shot. You will not regret it. That is my way of saying that it is a very solid horror movie, but it's not going to become the next Night of the Living Dead or The Exorcist or Rosemary's Baby or Texas Chainsaw Massacre or any horror classic you care to mention. But before I go, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of my podcast, Wrong Reel, Manscaped, the world's foremost experts in men's precision below-the-waist grooming. And when you order their Performance Package 4.0, it comes with a couple different razors, a couple different kind of ointments and deodorants and that sort of thing, and some really cool boxers, and it's just a great kit all around. So it's the summer. People are heading to the beach. People want to look good in case they get lucky. So if you're out there feeling frisky, looking for some action, and you want to look good in the process, consider going to manscaped.com and using the discount code WRONGREEL in all caps. It'll get you 20% off your order, and you will earn my undying gratitude for supporting my podcasting and YouTubing endeavors. But if you want to talk more about horror or Scott Derrickson or whatever, hunt me down on Twitter at Geeking Out. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. That's the most important. But I can't thank you for watching and listening to my rant, but I hope everyone has a great weekend. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.